It's not often that we get good news from Hollywood. Usually we're inundated with absolutely bad news day in and day out. But we got some fantastic news from Amazon MGM Studios yesterday that they were shutting down the Wheel of Time after their third season. This was absolutely fantastic news because this show has been LGBTQ plus propaganda, so much so that that is what the showrunner was calling it earlier this year to market it. Joining me to discuss the show's cancellation is Lady Gravemaster. Welcome to the Trent Report. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Doing great. As I said, I was very happy to see that the Wheel of Time is being shut down. I found this show absolutely repugnant for the episodes that I watched in the first season, and then everything else that I saw about it made it even worse. And I'm so glad that it is being shut down and no more people are going to be exposed to this.
I 100% agree with that. This this is a perfect example of the just blatant hatred that Hollywood in general, but especially larger studios has for wholesome or even fleshed out IPs. Wheel of Time is one of the best and longest series that I have ever read. It is spectacular. Um, Will Jordan. This is this man's. It's not Will Jordan.
Robert.
Robert Jordan. I've been spending too much time talking to Drinker. Sorry. Robert Jordan is. I mean, he. It's still probably one of the best prologues. excuse me. I've ever read in my life. With just like, Eye of the World. That what gets us into the entirety of the series, it really does set everything up. And once you read everything, if you go back and you read the prologue, it it really he saw that thread all the way through, so much so that on his deathbed, he's writing notes. He has like the how the story is going to end. He is talking to his wife about his vision. He is getting her involved because he knows his time is running short. He knows he's not going to be able to finish this on his own. So he left everything he possibly could, basically to his last breath, so that his work could be finished. And then, of course, Brandon Sanderson wrote to Robert Jordan's widow, and she contacted him and was like, hey, would you be willing? And so then he stepped up and helped finish this incredible series. And he said, I'm not going to try to pretend like I am Robert Jordan because that would be a disservice to both of us. Because I'm not him, he's not me. I will do my best to honor what he has, his style and his vision. You are going to be able to tell the tone difference, but it will be with this respect. And you can definitely tell when it's no longer Robert Jordan writing it, but the themes are still there. The thread follows all the way through the entirety of the series, and that is Jordan's ending. That's Jordan's ending. That's not something that Sanderson made up. That is Jordan's ending of the series. And we don't we we don't get that type of love and care in anything anymore. So this series is this man's entire life's, like his life's work, his what he left to the world. And he cared so much that he wanted to give whomever would finish this for him everything that they could possibly need to do it justice. And then Amazon came along and shat on that man's life's work. Like, I am just, oh my gosh, even the little things that they changed. First of all, the introduction to this television series. I can't believe it's a series. I can't believe it made it past episode 1, where they fundamentally changed what happened when with the breaking of the world. Like, I I could not freaking believe that. For anyone that hasn't read the books and or seen the show, like you don't have that cross reference. Basically, he went to the female side because the way that this works, the way that it gets explained is, you know, there's two. You have the male side and the female side. That's gendered, and so Amazon hated that. Unless you're a red Aes Sedai, where they're going to, you know, slaughter men en masse who can, um, what do they say it in the show? They
Channel.
say,
Oh,
well, they say it's channel in the book, but they say
I don't,
they. Oh,
I
I
don't remember. I
remember.
only watched like the first 3 episodes, I think, of
Yeah,
the season 1 premiere, and I was like, I'm out. I didn't
yeah,
even get.
out,
I'm like, I'm
done,
done with this.
pulling it. Oh, I'm trying to remember. It was something like it was something like oh, it tells you how many times I've rewatched the episode ever since. It was so good. She rides up on them and she's like, "Taint it with your filth." That's what it was. So you've tainted the sword, like you've tainted it with your filth. That's what it was. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening right now?" And but at the very, very beginning, it's Rosamund Pike, and she's doing a voiceover. And I think they were trying to go for like a Galadriel Lord of the Rings epic
Yeah.
overtone. I really like Rosamund Pike. She, uh, she's not Kate Blanchett, and she's definitely not Galadriel. And to be fair, Robert is not Tolkien. But it's it is very angering. In less than 1 minute, men got blamed for all of the problems. Men are the ones who were arrogant and prideful and thought that they could seal away the darkness or destroy it completely. No, what actually happened in the books, is they came to the women and said, "Hey, we can't do this without you. We're going to try even if you say no. But we cannot do this without you." The women said no. They went and tried anyway, even though they knew it was likely going to fail, and it did. And then what ended up happening was, the way that it gets explained is, think of it like a level of oil above water. In order to channel, like they have to reach through the oil, and then when they come back out of the oil, there is this overcast, there's this darkness with it. And that's why the men lose their minds when they are able to channel. And the that's actually like tragic, because in the show, like the Red Aes Sedai, like, oh, it's unnatural for men to be able to touch the source, and it's actually not. It's just that
Right.
there is literally evil. There's an evil barrier there, and that's why the whole idea of this being men's fault is really one of the most disgusting twists that they could have possibly done to this this story. It
Adaptation. Yeah.
yeah, that like it I just because if you've never read the books, you would be like, okay, well, that makes sense. And then from there, the changes just get worse and worse. Like, there's no way that this man, again, to his last breath, was writing about this story. And Amazon came in and they were like, oh, no, we're gonna change this prologue, and it's gonna alter stuff that happens all the way in book 6, but it is okay, we'll have time until we get there. And then they like the condensing of timelines, which is also my problem with Rings of Power, but the condensing of time and events happening way faster than they should have, or out of order, it screws up the rest of the story. Like, you literally cannot have certain things happen, because later on in the books, like you've there's no way to move forward the way you need to in order to get to the end of the story. And then when when they said that we don't know, also again in the intro, that intro, just go back and listen to the prologue. It f's up the entire story. Sorry. It
Yeah. Well,
oh,
they leave it open too that the Dragon Reborn can be a woman.
yes, we don't know if it's a boy or a girl. I'm
Yeah.
just like, no, that's the one thing you definitely know.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then it's the little stuff too. They were so if they had just been patient, if they had just been patient, there is, I would argue, more diversity in this story than in the Dragon Show. Game of Thrones. I was
Game
like,
of Thrones. Yeah.
Game of Thrones, okay? So, but just like in Game of Thrones, since that's the one that everybody wants to sort of call back to, and they, Amazon, I mean, Jeff Bezos said he wanted Wheel of Time, or not Wheel of Time, he wanted Rings of Power to be his Game of Thrones, even though Game of Thrones was trying to be Lord of the Rings, and he actually got rights to Lord of the Rings and gaffed that away. And then you have Wheel of Time, which was clearly also trying to be Game of Thrones. And if they had just been patient, they would have had all the diversity they could have asked for. But they weren't, and they rushed it. And here's the thing about the two rivers: everybody looks the same. That's why Rand's hair was such a dead giveaway that his mom was not from Two Rivers. Like, she couldn't have been a Two Rivers folk because he was.
Yeah, he stood out. He's tall. He's got the red hair. Yeah.
Yeah, but like when you see this in the show,
it's New York City.
Yeah, it's New York. It's like, okay, everybody's here. There's other redheads. You've got people. You've got Orientals from whatever. Like, what does Lan say? I forget. But Lan shows up, and there's other people in Two Rivers that look just like him. So Lan wouldn't be. He wouldn't look any stranger. Like, you wouldn't know he didn't fit in there. And
yeah, it's supposed to be a severely isolated country town in the middle of like nowhere, and they barely get like traveling merchants. Like, that's like a thing in the opening of the book. And then but it's like, no, it's just a town that everyone comes to, apparently.
Yeah, everybody goes there. It's got bustling gossip and all of this stuff, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you have absolutely and like you said, John, first 3 episodes are really all you need to know exactly what this show is. But in that very first episode, they absolutely destroy the show in every possible way. There is no, I mean, even
the way they do the channeling was not done well.
The channeling wasn't done well.
They're trying to do some like Avatar Airbender stuff.
Yes, they were. I remember I made the comparison to how does a Patronus charm from the Harry Potter movies look more like what they are supposed to be doing when they're like, how does that look more correct than Wheel of Time, which at that time, if you remember, John, it was the most expensive show on TV per episode. And then Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, I hate to put that out there, but that's their, I remember that whole mouthful came out, the Lord of the Rings of Power, and I was like, oof, okay, that's a mouthful. And it's because they had to tie it to the Lord of the Rings, because they were like, we need that built-in audience. And this is the other
which they got initially.
Yeah, they did get the built-in audience initially, but here's the thing. They want that built-in audience, but they don't want to respect them. They don't cater to that built-in audience once they have them. They're just like, all right, we've got them. Now let's do whatever we want. And they'll stay here because we tell them to, I guess, is what they're hoping for.
Assumption is, yeah.
Yeah, like, they're like, oh, well.
They're so committed to the brand, the IP, the story, that they will stick with it, even if we're making all of these kind of changes. And we see this time and time again. This doesn't actually happen. So let me pull this up real quick. Obviously, the report that it was scrapped came from Deadline's Nelly Andreeva. She said Prime Video will not be renewing the Wheel of Time for a 4th season. As for the reason why, she claimed it was due to finances. When the show arrived on Prime Video for its first season with a 3-episode premiere back in November 2021, it recorded 1.163 billion minutes viewed, according to Nielsen. So again, it did get like that built-in kind of Wheel of Time audience that had been reading these books. And I know in my case, I was reading them all throughout high school and maybe a little bit into middle school. I think a lot of people probably had a similar experience. And then season 2 comes out, like 2 years later, 2023, I think. And it dropped dropped 3 episodes in that premiere week on September 1st. It only attracted 515 million minutes watched. So more than 50% decline there from the first season premiere to the second season. The season 3 premiere actually did better, right? It had 534 million minutes watched. But again, when you look at Nielsen, though, you have to remember that it tracks every single episode of the entire show. So sure, we're looking at the third season, but it could be people who hadn't seen season 1 or season 2. They're watching those, and that's tracked in there, because by the time it got to the release of its 6th episode, because remember, 3 episodes already first week, and then weekly after that. So you had it still staying on Nielsen in its 2nd week and 3rd week, 538, 505. But then by the 6th episode, it had fallen off the charts and was below 470 million minutes watched. And then in the week of its finale, it actually did indeed arrive back on the charts, but you can see it was down to 427 million minutes watched. So it was clearly losing viewership even in the 3rd season. The people that had actually stuck with it since then, it was still going down. So that kind of highlights your point there.
Yeah, well, and you had mentioned in the intro where it was LGBTQ plus propaganda. They admitted to it. The other thing that they did with season 3 was the marketing for season 3 was thirst trap. It was thirst trap land. They were going after the demographic of
The View.
women. Huh?
Like the View audience. They're trying to get the View audience. Yeah.
Yes. That is exactly what it is. They're going after the 35
The Secret Lives of Mormon Housewives.
Yes,
Like I keep seeing that ad on like a Hulu ad showing up.
They were trying to
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember in season 1, they were going after the shipping community really hard. They were trying to get shippers on board, and there was all of this push for who do you ship, when, stuff like that. It's the same tactics that they used with Rings of Power, with that whole Galadriel Sauron shipping nonsense.
Yeah, it's like Tumblr people.
Yes,
Yeah.
the bowels of Tumblr and Reddit, right? So this is the same thing, except they had to evolve because the shippers were not. Funny thing.
They didn't stay.
They didn't stay. They were not. They were not a long-term investment audience. I know, shocking to everybody. That that the shippers were not the wisest decision for you to invest all of that time and effort and money of, like, imagine the amount of money you have to spend on marketing for stuff like this. Think of the tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, wasted on shippers, like trying to get the shipping audience. Also, you can get social media buzz. Like, this is the fallacy of large corporations and how much they don't understand social media. They think they're still operating on the, like, all news is, or any press is good press, any marketing is good marketing. That is not true. And now we're seeing that because you have I don't know if you saw, John, on Ballerina, if it's a good review, you can go ahead and release it. But if it's a bad review, you have to hold it until a certain day.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Interesting.
Yes. I'll have to find that for you. But it's literally like, hey, here's the review embargo rules. If you're praising Ballerina, which is, for those that don't know, a John Wick spinoff,
with Anna de Armas, yeah.
Yes. You can go ahead and release on this date. If it is a bad review, you have to hold it for this long, and I think the gap is like 3 weeks.
So they're trying to gas up the Rotten Tomatoes scores to make people think that it's like has a lot of good buzz when it might not actually have that good buzz. Wow.
And the problem is that because the internet has now been around for quite some time, even with AI coming like on the horizon, the best YouTube channels, the YouTube channels that do the best are the authentic ones. It's not necessarily the really overly produced, fancy, professional looking ones. I mean, Outdoor Boys, who is retiring at the end of this year, his channel, I mean, he's literally just out in the woods. Like, he's not out setting up all of these like camera lights. He's showing you what he does, and he has like 15 million subscribers. And it was the same thing with PewDiePie. He really loved to play Minecraft. Like, he was one of the OG gaming channels, but he was authentic. He was real. He was himself. He stepped away. He now has a family. He won. PewDiePie won. So it isn't necessarily like the most overly produced channels, it's the ones who are the most authentic, and people can smell BS like a mile away now because the internet has been around for a long time. And so when you do stuff like what Ballerina is trying to do, or you do stuff like what Wheel of Time is doing in their marketing, people don't trust you. It doesn't feel real, it's inauthentic, and it turns them off, it turns them away. But they're like, okay, if we can get the shippers, it will get trending on social media, more people will see it, and then those people will come in. And that isn't how it works. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but Clarkson's Farm, which is another show on Amazon. Yeah, they were like, oh, this is gonna be like it's gonna be cool or whatever, and we'll get like the Top Gear audience because it is just Jeremy Clarkson attempting and failing, quite frequently a lot, trying to farm, and he's just like recording the process and being honest about it. It's one of their biggest hits on Amazon because he's just being authentic, and it went viral on its own. It wasn't like a marketing ploy or anything like that. And that is the problem. There isn't actually a formula to make something go viral. You just have to make something really good that people will enjoy. And if you have quality, it will go viral on its own. We've seen that time and time again. Like sometimes stuff goes viral and people can't figure out why. But for the most part, if something goes viral, it's either it's something that's really funny, it's something that's really impressive, or it's something that's real. And those are the kinds of things that actually work and speak to people. The studios are not giving us quality. That's why their stuff isn't going viral. So they are depending on these micro groups on social media who constantly live on social media, who are always online. And
Yeah, and in some cases, it's actually them themselves. I mean, remember we had the Casey Bloys, the HBO executive, literally admitted that he was paying his own staffers to try to create anonymous accounts to denigrate certain reviews that he didn't like for one of the HBO shows.
I forgot about
So
that.
yeah, there's stuff like that's going on. So one has to wonder. That begs the question, right? If they're doing that, what else are they doing to try to manipulate things on social media? And just up to your point about the authenticity, you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the showrunner for this show did admit earlier this year in promotion for this show that like the whole purpose was to make this LGBT plus propaganda. I mean, this is what he told the Hollywood Reporter. He says it felt essential. He's speaking about why he made Moraine and Siwan into lesbians. He says it felt essential that their relationship be textual. It is one of the most important relationships in the books for how it drives plot. It's almost like the inciting incident of the show is contained within the relationship between these two. To me, the show didn't make sense without that relationship being explicit because we are also putting more of the emphasis certainly on Rosamund Pike's character Moraine than there is in the books. You're also always looking as an artist for why am I telling this story? I have to devote my life to this for years and years. It was worth devoting my life to telling this beautiful story, but also that the lead was a queer character. I've never seen a fantasy show where our lead was just casually a queer character that wasn't only directed at the queer community. To have that was an important part of why I wanted to tell this story and why I fell in love with the books in the first place. He then goes on and talks about how, or I guess earlier in the interview, he justified denigrating Jordan's work by claiming the books were coded as gay. He says a lot of it also, this is the 90s and early 2000s, was very coded. It's always women are pillow friends. They're not lesbians, but it's all there. When you're reading it, it felt like big billboard signs of these are queer stories. These are queer characters, especially in comparison to all the other fantasy I'd been reading. For me, it was very important to find that in the show today. I feel like part of our job as artists who are adapting something is to bring it to life, not just word for word, but to also bring its context to life, which he is admitting that he just has changed, right? And the context of Wheel of Time in the 90s is very different from the context of reading the books today. I wanted to infuse that into the show and hopefully let people who weren't seeing themselves in other fantasy shows see themselves in Wheel of Time. So he's literally admitting that he's just completely making it up because he's saying that somehow the context of the show the context of the books has somehow changed from when he read it in the 90s to when he's making his show now. Like there's some newfound reading of the books that he alone discovered and can put into the show.
I Oh my gosh, the arrogance of these individuals. That's the other problem. The just blatant, unadulterated arrogance that is also unearned. Like, who is this man? Who does he think he is? Like, honestly, like, not to do like the pearl clutching ridiculous, but like, and honestly, I think the reason that they say that's a pearl clutch line is because they know it is something that effectively calls them out. Like, legitimately, who do you think you are that you can change a man's life's work, his magnum opus, and get away with it and be like, I actually know better than the man who wrote this? Are you freaking kidding me? And also, the fact, oh my gosh, the fact that relationship, they completely destroyed. So, my favorite character in the entire book series, entire book series, is Gareth. My absolute favorite. There is the second that she, by the way, walked through a mirror into another location so that they could secretly destroy, Canon in front of everybody, but also so that they could, secretly have like a lover's rendezvous. Um, Gareth is the one who is supposed to be there, like next because he's bonded to Swin. He's bonded to her. That like when that happened, I sat there and I was like, what like how are they going to be able to do Gareth? Like, where is he coming in? Like, how could they possibly write his character in here now? This
They
doesn't
tore
make
those
sense.
pages out.
Yes, they did. They tore them out, spat on them, and then burned them. And then it's I don't know if you watched the scene where, so basically they took parts of the dread. This is the other thing too.
I didn't watch anything after the first like 3 episodes. I actually got through the first season of Rings of Power.
Oh
Didn't
god.
watch the second season. I after the first 3 seasons. I mean, honestly, after the first episode, I think I finished the first 3 episodes begrudgingly. But I mean, after what they did to Perrin is my favorite character, and what they did to him in that first episode, where he's like, they have him as he's married, and then they have him kill his wife and stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, I just found that absolutely despicable and distasteful. I mean, even Brandon Sanderson thought what they did there was wrong. He didn't say it as probably as blunt as I would. He was trying to be measured in his criticisms,
With the
given the fact he was
contract,
still
the
getting
correct.
paid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even you could tell he didn't like that change.
Yeah, they did like, I would say that Gareth got done the dirtiest because he's not even in the story, but of everybody that appeared on screen, I think I would have to agree with you. Like, even later on in, especially in season
Don't
2.
they like torture him in some weird way
Yeah,
too? Like with
yeah.
with the white cloaks or whatever.
Like,
Yeah.
yep. Parrot, that's the end. That's either the end of season 1 or beginning of season 2. I do not remember, and I do not want to go back and rewatch to correct myself. But um,
No.
it's yeah, it is like what they did to Perrin. Oh my gosh, he. Oh yeah, that tracks. Yep, I think that's probably even. Yeah, they did him the worst. I would say Matt. They fundamentally misunderstood Matt.
Yeah. Well, the guy left. The first guy like let the actor they
Yeah,
had, he like dipped out, and they had to like
yeah,
replace him.
they had to replace him.
Yeah.
They fundamentally misunderstood Matt's entire character. Um,
Well, yeah, they don't understand the story at all. I mean, the
yeah,
guy's literally admitting here that he doesn't. He's saying like, "Oh, I gotta like create my new context to the book, so I
yeah,
can put it in my show because I'm a gay man and I gotta put that into the show." And I mean, we see this time and time again. The Rings of Power guys are always like, "This is the book that Tolkien never wrote," and it's like, dude, he
yes.
did write the
Oh my
book.
god, the
Like,
story that Tolkien never wrote. That man, I
yeah,
promise you, if Tolkien wanted to write it down, he would have. Likewise,
yeah,
Warner Brothers cannot get out of their own way. That atrocity with War of the Rohirrim. Listen, she was an unnamed character for a reason. If Tolkien wanted to give her a name, he would have.
right.
Like,
Yeah, we see this.
oh,
We're even seeing this too. I mean, obviously, this trend isn't going away anytime soon.
nope.
The Harry Potter show is doing this. The guy who's one of the writers had literally like talked on a podcast about like how if you actually stayed faithful to the books, it would be a home run. And I think they actually know a lot of this stuff, and that's why I think they take these properties and subvert them on purpose to push a lot of this stuff as humiliation rituals, etc., to try to demoralize and demean people. And then obviously, as well, they're trying to push the propaganda to make all this stuff normalized, make you think that this is what people are supposed to be doing, etc., etc. I think it's a lot easier to do that in a fantasy setting than maybe in sitcoms, but we even see that in sitcoms with things like Modern Family, etc. But they know that it would be, if you actually stayed true to it, it would be a home run. But nevertheless, they're going to change things anyways. Obviously, the casting for the Harry Potter show indicates that they are going to be changing things with Snape, etc. But I do want to kind of get back to like where we were at the very beginning, that this is something a good thing. And from what I've seen, when I look at like the entertainment world, especially with movies and TV, I haven't been seeing a lot of changes happening for the most part, except at Amazon. Amazon does seem to be the place where we are kind of seeing changes. Jennifer Salke was removed as the head. She was the one who was pushing a lot of this stuff, Rings of Power, this show, etc. She's removed in February. We're now in May. A couple months later, Wheel of Time is done as soon as the show ended, the third season ended. So we are seeing some like good things there. It seems like happening at Amazon, that there might be some shifting taking place there. Whereas I don't really feel like we're seeing that at Disney or anywhere else.
No,
clearly not at HBO.
No.
But are you seeing the same thing, or am I being a little bit too optimistic here? I always feel like I'm very pessimistic on Hollywood when it comes to this stuff, but we are seeing some changes here. Should we be like maybe hopeful for things with the Warhammer 40,000 stuff with Henry Cavill over there? I know Amazon has a little bit of a different production pipeline as well, because we have gotten some decent things like Terminal List, like House of David as well over there, that are maybe like outside of what we see happening with Rings of Power, Wheel of Time, and some of their other big fantasy shows.
Much like Wheel of Time, like they think that these are obscure fan bases that are small. Wheel of Time fan base is actually quite large. It's not a Tolkien-sized fan base, but it is actually quite large, and they are very, they're pretty devout.
Yeah, we saw that with the 1.163 billion. I mean, that was only what, seven. I think Rings of Power did like 1.6, 1.7 around there for its premiere. So that is not far off from
it isn't far off at all.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And here's the thing: Warhammer 40K, that is another. They have to be very careful where they tread, because that is not what, it hasn't been brought into the mainstream yet. Like, not really, not like Lord of the Rings, not like Wheel of Time, not like Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Not to that scale.
It hasn't had a big movie or television show. It has obviously, I think, gained a significant following through video games, etc. Space Marine 2 being the most recent example.
Absolutely. So I always tell people, they'll be like, well, like, should I get into 40K? Like, what do you think? And I'm like, do you want to? And they're like, kinda. And I'm like, okay, well, you can literally choose whichever avenue you want, because 40K has tabletop, they have video games, they have novels, they have comic books, you can just build the mini, like, you can, if you're just someone who loves to, if you love to paint and assemble, that 40K is your thing. Whatever your hobby is, 40K has it. Like, there is a niche already that exists within 40K for you. But here's the thing: in 40K, I'm not saying that they never cross over, but it's very siloed as well, because usually the video game players are not necessarily the tabletop players, and the tabletop players are not necessarily the novel readers, and the novel readers are not necessarily the painters. So yes, they're all part of the 40K community. We all talk. We may all be like, oh yeah, like this is what I love to do, or this is, oh my gosh, have you read this? Really, probably one of the most well-known, especially to normies, is the Horus Heresy. They're like, have you read this yet? Have you done this? Well, it really does depend where you come in at, but those different niches are pretty well siloed. There's not a ton of crossover. Um, when this 40K show does finally come out, they are all going to converge on this show. And if you thought that Wheel of Time fans were loyal to the lore, like 40K fans will, like, metaphorically, of course, in Minecraft, they'll rip your face off. I mean, they're not going to hold back. I mean, we've got fan films, we've got shorts. There are people like there's an entire cinematic universe that you can see like on YouTube and stuff where they have built out fan-made episodes, fan-made shows, fan-made trailers. The music, I mean, the music of 40K. There's like, honest to God, anything you could think of. And now you are creating a mainstream focal point for all of these previously siloed fans to focus on. So if you do not get this right, it I mean, it may be your third strike because you've already struck out with Tolkien, you've struck out with Jordan, and now you're going towards 40K. You have got to nail this. It has got to be perfect. My understanding, this is of course, I'm going to say this again, rumors. I don't have any sources outside of the ones that get released onto X for anybody to like read or whatever. And you have to take stuff with a grain of salt, and you have to be very, very cautious with what you believe and who you listen to with anything. That being said, this is just a rumor. My understanding is the reason that 40K has taken so long is, according to the rumors and the scoopers, who are wrong a lot, Henry Cavill did not want to work with Jennifer Salke because she wanted to inject a lot of the same stuff that was in Wheel of Time and Rings of Power into 40K. And Cavill is something that I refer to as a lore loyalist.
Yeah, he literally left the Witcher show.
He
Right?
left the Witcher show. I said this when season 1 came out. I was like, this is going to be so great for this show because not only is the author alive, well, you know, like, not only can you speak with it, this was the danger, right? George Lucas was also alive and they still made the sequels. But
Yeah, after they
you can,
they bought
yeah,
his script and shoved him in a vault somewhere, never to be seen
yeah,
again.
locked him away in a cupboard somewhere. But not only can you talk to him, not only can you talk to all of these fans, because you have the graphic novels, you have the comic books, you have the games. Again, there's a whole music community out there around the Witcher music. You've got the book. I said, but the star of your show has played the games, read the books, read the graphic novels, knows his stuff, loves the. If I am remembering correctly, she literally said it got annoying because he heard a rumor about The Witcher and he was like, what do I need to do? Every day, his agent or him, he was like, Cavill was blowing up her phone to be involved in The Witcher and to star in The Witcher. And
She admitted that when there was like she was having trouble like figuring out something, he was like, "Here it is, it's in the book," and he
yeah,
just like gave it to her, and it was like, "Oh
yeah,
yes."
just gave it to her. The scene, like, best scene in the entire series, unfortunately, when they killed Roach and she wanted to make it like a joke. And Cavill was like, no. And then they were like, well, we're like, okay, you write the scene. And then he did because he knows the character because he's a lore loyalist. He literally wrote the best scene of that entire season and arguably the best one of the series when he had to, kill Roach. And you're just like gutted at that point, but you were like, why does this feel so different than the rest of the show? It's because Cavill wrote it. It's because he honored the source material. It really was that simple. That scene was the one that got talked about and that people remember the most because it stands out. The other problem that all of these shows, whether it be Netflix, Amazon, Paramount, like whoever is doing, Paramount doesn't really do fantasy shows, but HBO, it's like when you're doing fantasy shows, setting is so important because it is one of the ways that you tell the difference. Because if you looked at Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter side by side, if you put Gandalf next to Dumbledore, they clearly do not belong next to each other. They are not part of the same universe. They are not part of the same IP. Okay, these have two very different like stories behind them. They belong in different worlds. That picture that you had up before with Rosamund Pike, because I refuse to call her anything other than Rosamund Pike, because I'm sorry, it was just Rosamund Pike. Not that she's not a good actress, but she's not Moraine, and I will not be calling her that. Like it, but it's that could be any that could be anything. Like there's nothing about these costumes, and
This
this
is
is
the new Taylor Sheridan
right.
1872 or something.
Yeah,
No.
1872. Like you can't tell where this actually belongs. There is nothing remarkable about the
Little House on the
setting.
Prairie here.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When I saw this, I was like, okay, I get it. They like a peasant. You're like if you're trying to go for like a peasant look or whatever, there's only so much that you could really do with it as far as what peasants would have access to. But that doesn't mean like why are these colors not more vibrant? Why is everything so muted? Like in Wheel of Time, when you read the books, you do not get the sense of muted anything. Even the peasants, like even the people who can't channel, the peasants, the lower class, like you don't get the sense of muted anything. This seems to be a very vibrant world, and we didn't get that in the show. You can't tell where anyone is from because everybody sounds the same. Everybody's clothes are the same. Everybody looks the same because nobody looks like anybody, so anybody can be from anywhere. And so
Right.
they have literally hold themselves, they've painted themselves into their corner of like when everybody is diverse, nobody is. Like Rand is not a standout character. He can't be because everybody
Well, they
looks
cast him that way on purpose, in my opinion. That's
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So you've there was a point, I'll have to find the article, but the showrunner literally said, I wanted the show to feel like New York City. I wanted it to look like New York City.
Like LA, New York.
And I'm
Yeah,
like,
sounds about right.
why? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what is going on? So it's
I don't want my show to look like like
anything. Yeah, when you
Christendom,
want
which
exactly
is clearly where Robert Jordan drew inspiration from.
100%. And so when you are trying so hard to avoid when you are trying so hard to avoid
The
this
source
going
material.
into
Yeah.
the source material, but it becomes your focal point. And so basically they tried so hard to avoid this that they became everything else. You cannot tell like if you looked at this still and you had no other context, would you think that this is a high fantasy series that had to do with a reincarnated soul that had slaughtered his, that's literally called the kinslayer, like that is the breaker of the world, the dragon, or the dragon reborn? Would you think any of that, like looking at this, at any of the stills that they send out? But looking at this looks like the I'm rough that looks like something out of Prey. That could be out of Prey. That ridiculous spin-off from the Predator series. Like that looks like it belongs in Prey or Dune. That could be Prey, that
Yeah.
could be
So
Dune.
there's this one.
I mean,
That's definitely Dune there.
that's definitely Dune. Like, do you see what I mean? There's nothing remarkable about this setting. There's nothing remarkable about these costumes. So when you get told that they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this show, you're like, where? Look at that. That could literally be freaking anything. Honestly, it looks like a high school production of the Fellowship of the Ring discounted version. Like
And that's why we're so happy that this show is
yes.
being scrapped, because I mean, it's ugly. As you're pointing out here, it's not like it doesn't like raise your mind to anything beautiful, right? Which I think Jordan does in his works. It clearly has all the kinds of propaganda. It's clearly trying to emotionally manipulate you as well. It ruins all of these characters. It changes a lot of their relationships. It changes the events that actually take place, and it's all done out of spite too. Because I think the Rafe Judkins hates the actual Wheel of Time fans, and he chose to destroy it.
Yes, he wants our money. He wants us to sit down, shut up, pay him,
which he got.
and
He
move
got paid big bucks by Amazon to make this.
Yes, he did.
So.
And that is the thing at the crux of this. So I think, going way back to the question you initially asked, yes, I think Amazon is making changes. Yes, I think that Salki being ousted was it was late. It was very late. I don't know if it was too late. I'm hoping that they can turn stuff around. Canceling this show, fantastic. That's a great start. If we hear more news on the 40K front, then I think the scoopers and the rumors are going to feel, for lack of a better word, vindicated in their idea that Cavill was holding things up because they didn't want to work with Salki because she was trying to inject that stuff. I'm sure they would run with that narrative. Like I said, that's all rumor at this point. But if 40K does start to get more momentum underneath it and we start hearing more news, that would suggest that there was definitely some kind of contractual something going on there. It would just suggest it, not confirm it. But then now we've got to look at the other big one, Rings of Power. That is getting put up for syndication. They're licensing it out. And you didn't hear that?
No,
Yeah,
I haven't seen that yet.
that news dropped yesterday as well. That news also dropped yesterday. Rings of Power, as well as oh gosh, what's the other one? The other one that they spend a ton of money on that was a ridiculous shame.
Oh, the one with the Russo brothers, their Citadel show.
Yes, that's the one, Citadel.
I see it. Yeah, I did see that. I missed this. This is over on Variety.
Yeah, Rings of Power and Citadel are up for syndication. And the only reason I think that they haven't canceled Rings of Power outright is because this is Jeff Bezos's actual vanity project. This is what he wanted his game. He wanted this to be his Game of Thrones, right? But he should have been trying to make Lord of the Rings and not Game of Thrones. But this is the only reason I think this has not been outright canceled. It took forever for the announcement of season 3 officially to be like to come forward, like to happen. There's the words I'm looking for. So it took forever for the official announcement of season 3. And then it was, okay, we're working on a script, and they are currently now in pre-production, like production stages. They're like getting sets and stuff together. So it is moving forward. I don't know when it's going to come out. And
you know what this tells me here? This tells me that they lost a ton of money and they need to make it back up.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They lost too much money. And here's the thing, all of these studios are figuring out that streaming does not pay. They broke their model. They saw Netflix. Yeah, they saw Netflix. They were like, okay, Netflix is making all this money. We're going to get a slice of this pie. We're going to go to streaming. We're going to abandon the television model that has worked for decades. We're going to abandon the theaters. We're going to go to streaming, and we're going to make a ton of money. And what they found out is monthly subscriptions do not cover multi-billion-dollar projects, hundreds of millions of dollars in like losses. I mean, the reason Netflix makes money is because those shows are made cheap. They're made very cheap. And but the thing is, people from Netflix now, people have a higher bar. But when it was essentially sort of stuff like made for TV movies, there's a reason people, especially when it comes to fantasy, if your story's good, they'll give you a break on bad CGI. Like, okay, it was a low budget film. Like, we can forgive that the dragons don't exactly look like HBO dragons. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, we can forgive it because the budget for this was $10 million for 20 episodes. That's $500,000 an episode. We get it. Like, But if your story is good enough, and if it's intriguing enough and people get pulled into it, then your budget gets bumped up a little bit because you've earned it. You've earned it. And people are willing to forego, especially with low budget shows or movies, but that tell a good story, you're going to get more forgiveness. But not when you're Amazon, not when you're not when you're Warner Brothers, not when you are studios that have been around for decades and have hundreds of some of you are multi-billion-dollar companies. You don't get that kind of grace. You don't get that break. You we know you have the
Especially
resources.
after their track record, right?
Yeah, exactly. We know that you have the resources to do this and do this well. You're choosing not to. You're choosing to cheap out on sets. You're choosing to cheap out on costumes and makeup. You're choosing to cheap out on your script writers. Like they don't even do. I remember. I think it's Script Doctor over on X is the account, but I think it was him that was saying how he used to get like 6 or 7 calls a week to review scripts and like tighten them up, excuse me, or see if there was anywhere like any pitfalls that they were missing or any holes in the script. Different projects would call him up, and that has all but stopped. Essentially, they don't review their scripts. They don't pay attention. That's why all of these shows, like especially obvious in like The Acolyte, where or in Agatha All Along, it felt like one person wrote episode 1. It's like that school project where
They
you've got
admitted this with the Secret Invasion. They said
yep,
they were still cutting together the story after they had even aired the first episode, and they
yeah.
were like putting it together still in like the cutting room to figure out what their story actually was.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so yeah, and then there's reports now or rumors now that the Avengers Doomsday is they have like the idea of the story, but they're like rewriting the script on the fly, kind of while they're in production.
They're still hiring cast. They're still hiring the cast. Like you don't even have the idea, like the fact that it got delayed to December, and I agree with a lot of people. I think it's going to get delayed again. You do not
Yes,
have the
likely.
time. You do not have the time to make anything of this magnitude in that small amount, in that small window. It just isn't going to happen. Especially, they only signed, if I am remembering correctly, the Russo brothers agreed to come on like 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks before the official announcement of Doomsday, because they were waiting for um, Robert Downey Jr. to agree to come back as Doctor Doom. Spoilers, I guess, for anybody that didn't know that. And the Russo brothers to sign back on, and I think I think it was, if I am remembering correctly, Robert Downey Jr. said he would come back if they could get the Russo brothers. So they were trying to sign the Russo brothers so they could get Downey Jr. back. Or it was the other way around. The Russo brothers said they'd come back if you could get Downey Jr. back. However that happened. And so, like, literally almost up into the day that announcement happened, they were still, like, the ink wasn't even dry on those contracts. So there's no way that there was a script. There's no way that they had any idea what they were doing. Because you and I both know they're not going to go back and read the comic books that are there, that they have. There is decades of good, incredible storytelling of lore that they can pull from.
Yeah.
But as we've witnessed, they're not going to do that because
They skipped over that and they went to Marvel Now in like 2013 and Riri Williams and Ironheart and everything. I did want to go back to Wheel of Time here. Last question. And so obviously, I started the show off saying this is a good thing that it's finally getting canceled. But as we've been talking here, they've also kind of poisoned the well against potentially an actual legitimate adaptation of Wheel of Time now. Given the fact that this has done so poorly, I think a lot of fans have been turned off. Trust has been broken. Do you think that there is a possibility that maybe a decade, 2 decades from now, that interest in Wheel of Time is kind of brought back, and we get people, like, our culture has changed, we get actual, like, a legitimate, solid adaptation? Do you think that is something that's even on the table at this point, or I mean, has this abomination pretty much like killed any kind of hopes of like a legitimate adaptation?
I am ever the optimist. and I don't think it's going to even take a decade. People are so thirsty and hungry for exceptional entertainment, for exceptional IP adaptations. We really want original storytelling. We really do. But also, if you can exceptionally adapt an IP, people are going to be tentative and cautious. So you have to prove to them every single time. You have to reprove yourself. I think that honestly, um, if give it 18 months, and if someone came to Amazon and said like, "I'll buy the rights off of you," and was able to produce and write and do the show justice, and it would blow the Amazon one out of the water, and then Amazon might try to be like, "Oh, like, look, we have a show too," but they might actually try to keep it quiet. They might pull a Disney and hide it in a hole like Disney did with Willow. Because if you can adapt something well and you have a one-to-one comparison, um it's it's actually embarrassing. And competition should breed excellence. The problem is we have reached a stage where everybody is in the executive positions. They're business people. They're not creative. Um, and they're not, but here's the other thing. They're not making business decisions. Like I've heard this a lot where, oh, the heads of studios, they're business people. They aren't like their background is in business administration, or they've been the CEO of Pepsi, or they have a marketing background or a management background. They don't have a creative background. That is part of the issue. The other part of the issue is these are really bad business people. They're not making business decisions. They're making emotional decisions. That's not a business. That is not a winning business strategy. That's one of the first things you learn in business is you have to remove emotion, because if you don't, you're going to tank your company. If you wake up one morning and you panic because, oh my gosh, it dropped like 3%, we've got to do something, and you start, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you're going to do more damage. There is something to be said for steadfastness. Everybody goes through hard times. Everybody has slumps. It is how you persevere. It's what you do in those moments that is going to determine the future of your company. And if you are having irrational emotional reactions to situations, you're going to fail, because that's a foundation of sand. It's not a foundation of stone. I think that there is the potential for an exceptional adaptation of Wheel of Time, of the appendices, of Lord of the Rings. I think honestly, you could do, just from the time of trees, you could have an entire series on that. You could have an entire series on the Song of Creation. There could be an entire series on Numenor. Like there is
Did a legitimate Helm Hammerhand
Yes, a
movie?
legitimate Helm Hammerhand. It is possible. It is. But you have to remove ego and emotion out of it. And they can't do that right now. So you need people who can. And I will say that I have seen this a bit on social media, especially on X. Matthew Marsden has made this comment. Um, and I don't really understand like what this means outside of like the obvious. Like there aren't any big conservative investors that are putting money out there. That's the biggest that I'm getting from it. But here's the other thing too. I don't know that there's necessarily big progressive producers that are sort of like hidden away in the shadows either. Like we have the big producer names that we know and we've heard of and that everybody kind of expects.
Oh well,
But
they own the studios. I mean,
they
Bob
own,
Iger,
yeah,
I would say,
yeah.
is a huge woke ideologue progressive
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, that's
Disney.
like 100%. But like a lot of people want to go with, oh, well, there's this like shadow organization that's funding all of this stuff. Well, we just found out because of Doge that actually our tax dollars, we were the ones funding this stuff through
Right.
USAID. Like our tax dollars are getting redirected. This, and they announced it during the pandemic, during like when COVID restrictions happened. We're going to give Hollywood, we're going to give these certain studios these subsidies. Where do these subsidies come from? The taxpayer. So yes, you have these producers, but also there is a lot of protectionism going on where money from everyday individuals like you and I are getting funneled to Hollywood as well, and we don't get a say in that. We don't even know that it's happening. And so we're sitting here and we're like, why is nothing changing? Like, we're trying to vote with our wallet, nothing is happening. Like,
Using our
accelerate.
money to propagandize us.
Yeah, exactly. They're using our own money to try and propagandize us. And so when you hear all of this, you're just like, woof. And then you listen to Matthew Marston and you're like, it's like, where are the conservative investors? So for anybody that doesn't know the history of Hollywood, conservatives built Hollywood. It was conservatives built Hollywood. The progressives realized what a powerful tool it was, infiltrated it, and kicked out a bunch of the conservatives. Even to this day, like, conservatives they're either hiding the fact that they're conservative, or they're just blacklisted from Hollywood outright.
They're doing things with Angel Studios. I know, like, Neil McDonough has his Last Rodeo movie that's coming out right now. You've got they're starting to try and create some of their own production studios
Yeah,
too.
they are.
The Hercules guys doing that.
Yes, Kevin
I've seen
Sorbo.
this. Kevin
Big
Sorbo,
fan.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
big fan of his. But I was like, I don't understand what this means, because there are, like, you and I, John, like, if there was somewhere that we could send, like, it's not going to be much, it's going to be maybe $10, maybe $100, but we've seen through, like, the Kickstarter campaigns and the Indiegogos, like, those can actually take off if people have a place that they know, like, I know where my money is going, this is what I want it used for, so I'm going to send it here. But there isn't really a place for individuals like us to do that. And I don't know how to encourage conservatives to invest money, because a lot of conservative opinion, more Republican than conservative, but the Republican opinion seems to be that um, it's a waste of time, or it's a bad investment, and they're failing to see the reach that it has, the influence that it does have. Whether you personally like something or not does not necessarily diminish its effect on everybody else. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, they fail to understand that it's not about any kind of like immediate return on investment. You're creating something that potentially could last the test of time. Things like Michelangelo's David, the Sistine Chapel, etc. All of the Gothic cathedrals that were built during Christendom. And then I think even in modern times now, we can point to something like Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy, as much as it does kind of eschew a little bit from Tolkien's original stuff. I mean, he built something amazing there. You can look at Mel Gibson's filmography as well.
oh
Passion
yeah,
of the Christ, that movie is going to stand the test of time.
100%.
And
So does Apocalypto. So does Braveheart.
yeah,
I mean,
right. And even the books, right? Tolkien's books, the novels,
yeah,
etc. Those things are still being widely read today.
it is.
And
It's the second highest selling book in the most language. It's been,
behind the
like,
Bible, yeah.
behind the Bible. Like, behind the Bible, it is the highest selling story. And so that that says something. And what these what Republicans and some, like, conservatives are failing to either understand or are just completely ignoring, this speaks to the youth. Video games, you might not like them. You may think they are a waste of time. You may take your own kids out and you may give them this great experience. That isn't the reality for a lot of kids. A lot of kids are stuck in cities. They can't go outside because it's dangerous. Like, that's the situation they live in. They're indoors. If they're outdoors, they're getting into trouble or they're running away from trouble. And that's not to say that, like, city life is horrific and there's nothing good about cities, but the reality is that a lot of these kids can't go to parks without running into vagrants who are, like, shooting up drugs, or are bumming people for money, or are just straight up mugging people. Like, there's so much out there that video games are the escape, books are the escape, film is the escape. And when you flood that with propaganda and parents start to recognize it, they're going to pull their kids away from that, because that's as dangerous. It's leading to problems in the real world when you shove all this propaganda in. We've seen it happening where, like, the tensions are trying to boil over, and all of this stuff, you're just saturated with it day after day after day after day. If conservatives do not step up and start producing not even just unbiased, like, no messaging whatsoever, and you go straight like for applicability. If But here's the thing, masculinity is a conservative value. So you can't not make conservative anything like
The leftists are right in this sense. There is no such thing as a story without a message. There's always going to be themes in it. I mean, Jon Favreau has talked about this, and he wasn't making any kind of ideological or political statement. He was literally talking about the films, the TV shows that we're making now are the values that we're passing down to the next generation. And there's I think quite a bit of truth in that. The issue, and that's really why I am involved in a lot of this stuff, is because a lot of the values that they are passing down are bad. They aren't values. They're immoral. They're immoral.
Anti-values. They are anti-values that are getting passed down, and people are recognize that like your soul recognizes truth, your soul recognizes good, and it also recognizes evil, and it attempts to reject it. So when people are trying to force you to accept things that you are instinctually trying to step back from, and they're saying, well, you're hateful, you're this, you're that, eventually you're just going to walk away. But you have to be able to give you have to give something else. This is why, and this will be returning this summer much more frequently because my schedule will be a little less crazy. That's why I try to do nostalgic Nirvana. Of everything that I do, I try to do nostalgic Nirvanas on Thursdays, and talk about upcoming projects or IPs that can give us sort of that true escapist break. Because if you're talking about this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, don't watch, don't watch, don't watch, don't read, don't read, don't read, but you're not giving any type of alternative, you're just as bad. You're not really serving a purpose. If you're just like, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Okay, well then tell me something
you're trapped within their paradigm of discussion.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're not free. Yeah.
Exactly. So I like, oh my gosh, I think I've done like 3 nostalgic Nirvanas on like just Keanu, like the Mummy with that's the 1999 Mummy. I love it.
Yeah,
Speed.
those ones are fun.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lethal Weapon. Love them. Conan the Barbarian. So like all of these things. High Road to China. It's got Tom Selleck in it, and it was basically like he was trying to prove that he could be like Indiana Jones. It's actually really, really good. And so there's all of this, there's this treasure trove of incredible storytelling. There are novels that have been sitting on the shelves since the 80s, since the 90s. Do you know how many people don't know about Redwall? I'm shocked. I found that in 5th grade, and it is like one of my favorite series ever.
Brian Jock stuff is great. Yeah.
Yes,
love Redwall.
I love it more than the Chronicles of Narnia. I love Redwall, and I was shocked to find out a bunch of these parents who are in this Catholic community, they have never heard of it. And then you start to read it, and you start to see the parallels of like Matthias and Martin and the reincarnation of promise of Christ, but you also see like Saint Michael the Archangel, and you see like all of this like Catholic iconography and imagery and values and lessons. Like they're overflowing in this story, but they don't like slam you in the face. It's not like you will do this, you will do that, like you will be Catholic, you will, like, it isn't that. It's a narrative story built on the foundation of these Catholic values. I believe the term that he used in an interview was Irish Catholic work ethic. And it's great to hear that and go like, okay, this makes sense, because those are the values he had. They are reflected in the stories that he told. There's 22 books in that series. If any of you guys have not read it, I strongly recommend it. I also found out that there was an animated series done, and I am not all the way through that either, but I'm having a really good time with it so far. They made it for it was on PBS of all places, like in the early 2000s, and the animation's actually pretty good.
Yeah, so that's obviously trying to recommend things. that we should be filling our minds with and elevating ourselves and trying to stay away from the bad things like this Wheel of Time show that is trying to poison our minds and destroy us. We want to fill our lives and fill our minds with good things. And we had a great, I think we did that here today with this conversation. So thank you so much for joining me. I guess it's still morning for you, but a little afternoon here now on the East Coast. Lady Grandmaster, I know you said you were talking about people can find you on your what did you call it? Nostalgic Nirvana or Nirvana Nostalgic on Thursdays?
Yeah, Nostalgic Nirvana I do on Thursdays. It's my Thursday evening show that I do. If you're in the States, it's in Thursday evenings. I'll be a little bit more active over the summer because my schedule will be a little less hectic. But yes, I'm over on X. I do have an Instagram, but I'm barely there. But yeah, I'm also on YouTube under Lady Gravemaster, and so Thursday's show is Nostalgic Nirvana, and I do videos and random live streams. So where we just talk about sort of everything in between. There was a 20-minute rant I went on about the Dewey Decimal System and how it is overlooked and underappreciated, which is true.
Yes.
So yeah, literally, I'm actually a dork, and I love it. My husband loves it too, so all good. But John, thank you so much for having me on. And yes, this is fantastic news, and I think the syndication of Rings of Power, that is the stopgap that they are attempting to do before they also outright cancel it, which will be more great news. Because if you remember, they're only on season 2 of Rings of Power. So Wheel of Time didn't make it past season 3. So hopefully they will not make it past season 3 of Rings of Power, because this is season 2 is what we're working on. So it will be very telling and very interesting what comes in the future. But thank you so much for having me talk about this. This is stuff that I absolutely love. So I appreciate you, and thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Look forward to having you back soon.
Yes.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?